Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. We have been talking about this for years, that the Germans are having trouble in China because their EVs are just EVs. They are not really computers on wheels. And a new big study from Germany done by MHP, which is actually part of Porsche, who is part of Volkswagen Group that has huge problems with software, and is why Porsche is kind of doing their own thing because they don't want the Volkswagen's software platform. But anyway, just to say, this is a study where Porsche is part of, and that just makes these findings even more juicy. The whole study is in German, but Alexandra, everybody's Tesla boomer mama on X, did translate all the facts in a post, and I will leave a link to that down below. But the legacy automakers are really in trouble, as software-defined vehicles are the key to long-term competitiveness, something the old OEMs just doesn't have. And with their slow production development cycle, they probably don't even have time left to correct this. So let's check out all the data and let's dive right in. So the study I talked about is a big study with 5,000 people participating from China, the US, Germany, Sweden, Poland, Italy and the UK, looking at software-defined vehicles that was introduced 10 years ago by Tesla, that has a central unit which drives all software entities of the car, which can be updated over the air, allowing access to app stores and functions on demand. Chinese and South Korean car makers have applied software-defined vehicles in their EV offers. Traditional OEMs, however, giving their traditional hardware approach and the embedded nature so far used to combine 100+ electronic control units from different suppliers, are challenged and need to address the development of their software methodology as well as a central software architecture. Time is of essence if the legacy OEMs want to continue to compete. Yes, this is exactly what Herbert Diess talked about back in 2021, that not a single line of code came from Volkswagen, and they had over 50 software suppliers. And Jim Farley also told Robert from the Fully Charged show that Ford is using 150 different software suppliers that is controlling everything in the car, so that is why an over-the-air update are almost impossible for legacy automakers with the structure they have today. So sure, if it's just a little thing in the infotainment system, they can do an over-the-air update fix, but we see this time and time again. Every time there is a software issue from the old guys, even though they say they can do an over-the-air update, their consumers still have to take their cars into the service center to do an over-the-air update, and it usually takes many hours to do so, and it usually takes them a long time to figure out how to fix it because they have to get in contact with all their suppliers involved. Whereas Tesla usually have fixed their issues before the mainstream media can even come up with a headline about Tesla's 2 million recalls. Yes, not a recall, just a software update. But this is also why legacy automakers' software is so far behind, because of the product development cycle, or PEP, because that is usually 48 months for the old guys. So when they're getting their software suppliers to make the software, it will be at least 4 years old when they finally come out with their cars. And that is why all the software in the old ICE cars is looking like it's a decade old, because it probably is. But here are the 10 key findings of this survey. 58% of all participants are ready to purchase a car from Chinese car makers, and of course 98% of respondents from China. But remember, this is the Germans' biggest car market, and everyone there is ready to buy a Chinese-made EV. And 47% in Europe, and 44% from the US, and 46% in Germany. So about half of people already today are ready to buy a Chinese EV. So if you still hear people saying no one wants to buy Chinese-made EVs, well, they are probably just part of the other half that is not ready yet. And 73% of participants are considering digital component as a decisive feature when choosing a car, and 100% of respondents in China. So, as we talked about many times, the Chinese people don't want the German's EV because they are subpar when it comes to software. And 100% of all Chinese buyers have this as a decisive feature. So this study just confirms what we have been talking about for so many years. Software is the new luxury. And all respondents wanted extremely high build quality. And yes, Tesla has the best-selling car in the world. So I guess their build quality is quite alright. And the price-to-quality ratio of Chinese cars is a key factor for Chinese cars in Europe, and in particular in Germany. So the price really has to be right. And that is why we see something like the BYD Han selling next to nothing here in Europe, as 50% don't mind buying a Chinese EV, but the Han is way too expensive for what you get, as you can almost buy 2 refreshed Tesla Model 3 for the same price as one BYD Han in my country. The BYD Seal has just come to Europe though, and it's priced just as the Tesla Model 3, so that will no doubt do a lot better here in Europe. And we have even had car reviewers from Autocar saying after have testing the BYD Seal, bottom line, the Seal correctly set up drives like a credible car from a top-class European brand in terms of braking, steering, ride quality and handling balance. People predicted that Chinese manufacturer would soon match the best Europeans. Now they have. So this is a problem for the old guys. The Chinese are already here with competitive EVs that can match them, but in software overtakes them. They are actually software-defined vehicles. And the study also showed that the Chinese car buyers have far higher expectations to both hardware and software than in Western markets. And this is why the Western OEMs are struggling so much in China with their electric vehicle sales. Twice as many Chinese car buyers want a car that has autonomous driving features compared to Europe and the US-based car buyers. But with the whole ID family from Volkswagen, you will not get this feature. Chinese car buyers are prepared to pay much higher price for autonomous driving feature than in other countries, a feature Tesla of course have in their cars. And in China, already today, only cars with digital features can be sold. 41% of all participants feels that cars from the European car makers lack a good price-to-quality ratio. I completely agree here, and to repeat myself for the 1000th time, that is exactly what I said about the ID3 when I test drove it 3 years ago. A little nice EV, but too expensive for what you get. And apparently, that is not just me thinking that. And globally, German OEMs are considered competent in digital car components. This trend, however, has decreased over time, and the Chinese OEMs trends clearly increased. So the Chinese are, clear as day, catching up to the old legacy automakers. But the old guys' problem is not just the lack of software experience, it is also their pace. As the study also showed, slow adaptability. A 48-month, so 4 years, product development cycle, common to many Western brands, is too slow for the dynamic Chinese market. This long cycle prevents a rapid adjustment and changes needed to compete with local brands. This is where Tesla is the complete opposite. They make changes daily, constantly changing some features in the car, the production line, or coming up with new ideas in software and just bring it out to his customers with an over-the-air update. So while the old guys are talking about what they should change in the new model coming out in 4 years, Tesla will have made something like 4,000 changes to either their car or production line, according to both Elon and Joe Justice, that has been head of Agile at Tesla. So this is why I have been saying for so many years, since I started the channel over 4 years ago, the old guys have no chance of catching up to Tesla. And now the Chinese has even caught up to the legacy automakers and in some areas overtaken them. This is not a good situation for the legacy automakers. They are already behind, so people don't want their EVs as the price is also too high compared to what you get with the Tesla or the Chinese. And that is why we are seeing Volkswagen, GM, Ford and many others having demand problem for their EVs and cutting back because their EVs are uncompetitive with an uncompetitive price. And they are so slow to make changes that they have no chance of ever catching up. That is why we see all the big ones starting to collaborate with Chinese companies, like we see with Volkswagen and Xpeng, for example, because Volkswagen will never be able to catch up on their own. Their product development cycle is simply too long, so they now rely on the Chinese automakers to make their EVs so they will become more compelling to the Chinese people. So they have basically given up and waved the white flag. And as this study also shows, local brands better understand the specific need and preference of the Chinese consumers and can therefore offer more targeted digital solutions. Because we have to remember, even today, it is not really Volkswagen that is making their own cars in China. That is SAIC or FAW. So the legacy automakers are basically only invested in the adventure in China and have shared all their technology with the Chinese, but don't really do much of anything in China, as it is the Chinese companies that are actually building the cars for them. Again, Tesla is the complete opposite. Tesla was the first ever foreign company who was allowed to 100% own their own factory. So Tesla is building its own cars, and it is the Chinese Tesla team that has come up with many of the new features in the refreshed Model 3 because that was some of the features the Chinese consumers was asking for. So again, Tesla has a huge advantage here over the legacy automakers. So this study really confirms all the things we have been talking about for years and why the Germans are not getting a foothold in China, because the old guys mostly just have an electric vehicle, not a software-defined vehicle. And a software-defined vehicle is the key to long-term competitiveness. Even the high-end luxury vehicles from the German brands do not feel very luxurious if they don't have high-tech software in the cars. It just feels old school. People care less and less about hand-stitched leather and more about technology. Technology is truly becoming the new luxury, and the Chinese and Tesla are not holding back or slowing down. So for the old guys to be cutting back on EV targets and production and firing hundreds and thousands of people really shows us how bad the situation for the old legacy automakers are. The only question is, when we know how slowly the old guys are moving, combined with the fact that they have no expertise in software.
But just remember, car companies haven't written software like this.
Yeah.
Ever. They've never written software. So we're literally writing how the vehicle operates, the software to operate the vehicle for the first time ever.
Yeah.
As we can also see when Volkswagen thought that 5,000 software engineers to make an operating system was the way to go. And of course that ended up being a complete disaster that even got Herbert Diess fired, combined with the knowledge that world-class software is not just something you create over a couple of years. The question is, when will the old guys even be able to have something that is competitive with the Chinese and Tesla? And will it be in time to save their reputation as well? As with the ID.3's many software bugs have no doubt been a big influence to why Volkswagen is not seeing the demand for the ID.3 as they hoped. It has already got a reputation for bad software. So many consumers could end up looking at the old legacy automakers like a Nokia phone or a BlackBerry, even when they may be 4 to 5 years down the road actually get some great software in their cars. Will it be too late? As people hardly look their way anymore because they have a reputation of lacking in software. A bad reputation can kill a company all on its own. And it is not easy getting that reputation to go away even after you corrected the problem. Just as we see with Tesla, some people still think they have bad build quality. But one thing is for sure, time is of essence if the legacy automakers wants to continue to compete, especially in the biggest car market on the planet, in China, as there is not 4 years left before new ICE sales will be the minority and EVs the majority. The old guys don't even have one production development cycle left. So, let's see if they can pull off a miracle, or if we are actually witnessing the beginning of the end. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.